Welcome to the Movie Spoiler Club, the channel where you can watch movie, television, and streaming series within minutes. Today we're going to spoil the movie Thor: The Dark World, 2013. The movie begins with Odin narrating an event that happened eons ago. King Bor of Asgard, father of Odin, clashed with a dark elf named Malekith and his army, who was going to unleash a fluid form weapon that's known as the Aether on the Nine Realms at once. On the day of convergence of the realms, Bor defeats Malekith's forces and takes the Aether. But unknown to him, Malekith and a handful of Dark Elves escape into suspended animation, vowing to return and finish the task. Bor safeguards the Aether in a place where no one will ever find it, under a stone column. Cut into present time. After the New York events, we see Loki being sentenced for lifetime prison for his crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, Thor and his friends are fighting a group of invaders in Vanaheim that has been terrorizing the Nine Realms for the past few years. The Asgardians win the battle, finishing the terrorism, and return to Asgard using the Bifrost, which has been repaired with the power of the Tesseract. In London, we see Jane Foster on an unsuccessful date with a guy where she gets interrupted by her intern, Darcy. Now along with another intern, Ian, they go to an abandoned factory that some kids reported them to be of strange behavior. They realize that the reason for it is that there is a portal to another parallel world has opened. Jane finds it very interesting that the place was disrupting the laws of physics. She separates from the group following a signal from her device, a signal that she did not witness after the events in New York, and gets teleported into another world. We see that it's the place where the Aether was buried by Bor, and the weapon gets absorbed into Jane's body as she tries to observe it. In Asgard, Heimdall alerts Thor that Jane went invisible from his vision, leading Thor to land on Earth. Being gone away for a few hours, Jane awakens on Earth as Thor arrives. Jane blames him for not visiting her in 2 years but gets interrupted by the police that Darcy had called regarding Jane's disappearance. The police tell them that they were trespassing and tries to take her into custody. But just when the officer touches her, she unknowingly releases an unearthly force. Realizing that something's wrong, Thor takes Jane with him to Asgard. Meanwhile, Malekith has awakened with the release of the Aether from his long sleep of thousands of years, and he assembles his group of survivors to begin his finished task on the Convergence Day. In Asgard, the healers try to heal Jane from her infection. Even though they know that some power has infected into her body, they do not know how to heal it. Odin arrives in the medical room and tells Thor that Jane cannot stay in Asgard since she's a mortal human being. Thor says that she's ill, but Odin commands the guards to take her back. When they try to take her, the body again unleashes the force against them. Shocked with the incident, Odin observes Jane's hand and recognizes that the Aether has been absorbed into her body and is defending itself. Odin takes Thor and Jane to the palace and tells them the tale about Malekith and the Aether, and how his father Bor killed them all. But Thor is uncertain of that since the Aether that was said to be destroyed has now shown up. In Svartalfheim, the Dark World, Malekith is getting ready for the destroying the Nine Realms since the worlds have now nearly aligned. Algrim, another Dark Elf who survived the battle, sacrifices his life to become an unstoppable cursed super warrior and leaves to Asgard to tear up its defenses. Algrim infiltrates into Asgard pretending to be a war prisoner. The guards put him in a cell, in the same prison where Loki is serving time. Thor takes Jane on a tour of Asgard and explains about the event of convergence. He tells her that every 5,000 years, the worlds get perfectly aligned, and the borders between the worlds become blurred. Thor promises that he will find a way to save Jane. As they get interrupted by Frigga, Thor introduces his mother to Jane and they get acquainted. In the prison, the cursed super warrior Algrim gets charged up, and he breaks out from the cell killing the guards. He frees all the other prisoners except Loki, and they start rioting up. Loki tells Algrim the directions for the defense vault. Thor hears the mess while talking with Frigga and Jane, and he flies to the dungeons as Frigga tells him that she will look after Jane. Thor arrives into a battle where his friends and guards are engaged in a battle with freed prisoners, and he starts fighting with them, while chaos is going inside the realm. At the gate, Heimdall senses something strange but cannot see anything. Quickly realizes that something invisible is infiltrating Asgard. Heimdall runs back and destroys a warship of Dark Elves, but soon it's revealed that it was a decoy to get the gatekeeper out of the guard. When he sees several warships getting into Asgard, followed by a huge aircraft led by Malekith, Heimdall goes back to the gate and activates the defense system of the kingdom. But the effort goes in vain as the freed super warrior goes for the inside defense systems, clearing his way, killing the soldiers, and tears the shield from the vault, making way for Malekith's forces to enter the kingdom. A battle takes place between the Dark Elves and Asgard soldiers while Malekith goes in search of Jane to take the Aether back. Malekith confronts Frigga, who's protecting Jane, and engages in a duel with her. Frigga nearly succeeds a win, until Algrim comes in and captures her. Malekith goes to Jane to get the ether, but it's soon revealed that she was just a projection created by Frigga, and that Frigga has hidden real Jane somewhere else. Furious, Malekith commands Algrim to kill Frigga. He stabs her with a knife just as Thor arrives at the scene, hitting Malekith with a thunderstroke. Algrim takes Malekith and flees away as Thor fails to catch them. Thor throws the Mjolnir in their direction, but the strike does not succeed when they get into their invisible aircraft and escape. Jane with the ether is safe now, but Frigga's life is sacrificed in the protection of it. They hold a funeral and inform Loki about her death, leading him to get worried and furious. On Earth, we see Dr. Erik Selvig has been put in a mental asylum because of his bizarre behavior, running around naked at a public historical place, too committed to his scientific works. Back in Asgard, the warriors remind Odin that they are defenseless at the moment, and the fact that the ability of Dark Elves aircrafts to be invisible even to Heimdall's eyes has made the Asgard palace vulnerable to enemies. Thor suggests that he better go to Svartalfheim with Jane and draw the enemy away from Asgard. And when Malekith takes the ether from Jane's body, he'll destroy both the ether and Malekith. But Odin opposes the idea of Thor, saying that they will wait for Malekith to come into Asgard, and they'll fight him then. Determined not to waste Asgard people's lives, Thor decides to take Jane to the Dark World. Since the Bifrost is shut down and the Tesseract is locked away for the safety of Asgard, Thor must find another way to leave the realm. He goes to see Loki, the only one who knows a way out of Asgard other than the Bifrost. Loki agrees to help Thor, and in return, Thor promises that Loki can have his revenge on Malekith for killing their mother, while Asgardian soldiers chasing them. With the help of Thor's friends and Heimdall, Thor, Jane and Loki escape to the Dark World through a secret tunnel that Loki directed. Meanwhile on Earth, Darcy and Ian rescue Eric from the mental asylum, claiming that he was Ian's father. When they get Eric's equipment and go out in the open, they notice that strange things are happening, just like they saw in that abandoned factory before. As Eric's request, they go to Jane's lab and start working on his project. On Svartalfheim, the two brothers work out a plan and Loki lures Malekith into drawing the ether out of Jane's body as Malekith finds them sensing the ether. But Thor's attempt on destroying the substance fails as the ether is indestructible, allowing Malekith to absorb the fluid weapon and escape. Algrim and other Dark Elves engage in a battle with Thor and Loki, ending up with Algrim stabbing Loki while Loki was trying to save Thor. They win the battle, killing all including Algrim, but Loki dies in the arms of Thor while apologizing for his actions. Following Loki's apparent death, Jane strangely receives a call from the guy she went on a date before. Jane realizes that there must be a connection to Earth in that area, and they discover another portal in a cave. It's revealed that it's the other door of the same portal that Jane found at the abandoned factory. When she sees some of the stuff the kids threw up have been teleported there. Using it, they get back to London and reunite with Dr. Selvig, Darcy and Ian. Eric has been studying the cosmic convergence for the past several months, and he determines the location where the convergence would reach its peak at Greenwich. Jane theorizes that Malekith will use the open portals to the other realms to unleash the power of the ether to destroy the 9 realms at convergence. Next morning, they go to Greenwich and set up the location with Eric's equipment. As Malekith comes there, Thor engages with him in an evenly matched battle. They fight and switch to various portals, while Dr. Selvig and Jane stop the other Dark Elves with their devices by creating gravitational fields. Thor and Malekith get separated from each other with one portal, and Thor reunites with the group, realizing that although the ether's power is indestructible, Malekith is not. Thor grabs Eric's equipment and impales Malekith, allowing Jane to teleport him back to Svartalfheim. The damaged ship of the Dark Elves falls, seemingly crushing Thor and Jane. But a second before that, Eric creates a portal using his device and teleports it. The ship falls in the Dark World, killing Malekith, who was not able to finish his work within the convergence. When the convergence of 7 minutes is over, the portal's close and everything goes back to normal. Sometime later, Thor goes back to Asgard and Odin congratulates him on the victory against Malekith. Odin seems ready to give the kingdom to Thor, saying that Thor will be a wise king, but Thor refuses the crown, telling Odin that he'll protect Asgard with all his strength. But he cannot do it sitting in the king's chair. The movie ends as Thor leaving Asgard to reunite with Jane, and we see Odin being transformed into Loki, revealing that Loki had faked his death and now in the throne. In the mid-credit scene, we see Thor's friends, Sif and Volstagg, handing the captured ether to the Collector, entrusting his care. When the Collector asks why don't they keep it in their vault, they reply that since the Tesseract being in Asgard, it would be dangerous to have 2 Infinity Stones close to each other. As they leave, we hear the Collector saying 1 down, 5 to go. In the post-credit scene, we see Thor reuniting with Jane on Earth, and unknowingly to them, a beast creature had been teleported onto Earth while they were engaged in the battle. and we see the beast running amok chasing birds. Movie trivia. Do you know that there were about 30 hammers made for Thor of various weights for different uses? The main hammer was made from aluminum, but it is replicated in different materials and weights, including a soft version for stunts. Of the 30, 5 versions were used most often, including the lid hammer that emits light when lightning strikes. This movie gets the movie rating of 6.9 from IMDb, Tomatometer rating of 66 and audience score of 76 from Rotten Tomatoes. Thank you for watching, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comment section, and hit the notification bell for the new movie spoiler video every week.